The Chicago Bears defense has been a concern for much of the season, but now they're facing the number one offense in the league with the potential MVP at quarterback and one of the smartest play callers as a head coach. This one should be a shootout if the weather allows for it.
You are Locked On Bears, your daily Chicago Bears podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This is Locked On Bears, and I'm your host, Lauren Cox. I'm here to bring you your daily, in-depth Chicago Bears news and analysis. On the show today, we're going to go through just how good this Rams offense is compared to some of the other offenses the Bears have faced this season, and why this is yet another step higher as far as a tougher and the toughest test they will have seen all year. But we'll also look at where within that they can find some vulnerability and some hope for slowing down Matthew Stafford and company. We'll also take a look at how this Rams coaching staff might be a little more distracted this week, certainly more distracted than the Bears coaching staff, because they're interviewing for coaching jobs across the NFL, but maybe some quiet whispers behind the scenes about a change to the Bears staff in the near future. And then we'll wrap up with a quick look at the injury report for both teams, where we know the Bears just put a couple players on IR, but outside of that, both sides are definitely getting healthier for this matchup. Today's episode of Locked On Bears is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use our promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. But I go into this Bears-Rams matchup as concerned about the defense as ever. And this has been an up and down group all season that, of course, has lived and died by the turnovers and have often had games where the final score, which is the most important part, makes the defensive performance look better than it felt in terms of the yards they gave up and the ease with which opposing offenses moved the ball. But if you keep the opposing offense off the scoreboard and hold them to field goals instead of touchdowns, that is winning quality defense. At the end of the day, that is their job. Who cares how many yards and completion percentage the opposing quarterback throws for? If they score, under 20 points or fewer points than your offense, then the defense did its job. And that's going to be the case again, or that's going to be the measurement at least again this week against the Los Angeles Rams. But I fear that this is a caliber of offense that's even a step beyond anything the Bears have seen this season, because it is literally the number one offense in football. And when we think back to how this Bears defense has fared this season, right? It was just 2 games ago, 3 weeks ago, when the Bears played the San Francisco 49ers, which is also a very good offense, but they rank 10th in points and 7th in yards. Like, very good, but not even technically top 5 in that regard. And the Rams walked up and down the field and put 42 on this Bears defense. And that's with smart play calling head coach Kyle Shanahan, a similar type of thing to Sean McVay, with, I think, a lesser quarterback, Brock Purdy, compared to Matthew Stafford. And that's not to knock Brock Purdy, but I just think one of them is likely to be named MVP this season. The other one has been good. It's Matthew Stafford is a step above what Brock Purdy is. I'm not ready to say okay, who's better, McVay or Shanahan? I mean, they kind of have different circumstances, but at worst, same caliber of head coach plus better quarterback than the team that put up 42 on the Bears defense. And it's easy to say, well, okay, that was a particularly bad day for the Bears defense. They've gotten a couple guys back now since then, and we'll talk about the injury report as well. And some of those things are, I think, valid, explanations here. But we also saw this defense give up 42 to the Cincinnati Bengals and 30 to the Baltimore Ravens. And, earlier this season, probably a different story, but 52 to the Lions in that first game, 27 this past week against the Green Bay Packers. And in the first half, they showed no signs of slowing down a Packers offense that is not in the same category as this Rams offense. They're not nearly as effective and consistent as this Rams offense. And I think the big key here is not only the quarterback play of Matthew Stafford, but the Bears haven't faced a duo of wide receivers quite as good as Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams this season. The 49ers were not a team with a bunch of wide receiver talent. It was Jawan Jennings, Ricky Pearsall, and tight end Jake Tongas that were putting up yards on this Bears offense. I suppose T. Higgins and Jamar Chase is probably the next closest thing this Bears defense has faced. But that was with Matthew Stafford, or with Joe Flacco at quarterback. He's not quite Matthew Stafford, although he did have a pretty productive game in that contest. But like the point being is this is just a combination of another tier above. I mean, you could start to throw maybe the Philadelphia Eagles in that category with A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith, I guess. But, we've kind of seen the limitations that group has, even with Jalen Hurts and the offensive coordinator play calling. Like the Rams have the combination of play caller, quarterback, and wide receiver that no other Bears opponent has had this season. And it scares the heck out of you. My hope there is that we have seen Bears defensive coordinator Dennis Allen take slightly different approaches against some of these teams that have the more special wide receivers. That when the Bears have played the Vikings and Justin Jefferson, and when they played the Bengals with Higgins and Jamar Chase, and when they've played some of these like upper echelon pass catchers, they've tended to play less man coverage in those games. Like we've been concerned about the amount of times, especially against the Packers now 3 times in a row, he comes out in man coverage, gets toasted in man coverage, and eventually figures out, hey, okay, we got to play more zone. And the feeling is like, well, can't you just play more zone from the start? Why do we keep trying this man coverage thing over and over again? And maybe, just maybe, the Rams are the type of offense where he says, all right, we just have to start with the zone because we could, I don't want to say admit defeat on the man coverage from the get-go, but you can kind of understand there's no shame in saying, hey, Puka Nacua and Devonta Adams are too good to cover one-on-one. Like you could reasonably talk yourself into feeling like, okay, well, if the Bears secondary was fully healthy, maybe they could cover Packers wide receivers one-on-one in man coverage. Like a fully healthy Jalen Johnson could probably keep up with some of those guys. A fully healthy Kyler Gordon, right? Like you can talk yourself into that a little bit. And same with the San Francisco 49ers or the Cleveland Browns. Like some of these teams you could delude yourself into thinking that maybe, just maybe, the Bears should cover them in man coverage. But I don't think anyone's going to feel like, yes, this Bears secondary matches up well across the board man-to-man with Puka Nacua and Devonta Adams. It's foolish at best. And so I think you combine that with some of what we've seen from Matthew Stafford this season, and you can talk yourself into a better approach that's more proactive and maybe gives you more of a chance to keep the score down early so your offense doesn't have to come back from a 2-score deficit in the fourth quarter or 3-score deficit in the fourth quarter like we've seen this team have to do so often this season. Like when I look back over Matthew Stafford's season, the vast majority of his interceptions this season have come against zone coverage. He hasn't thrown a ton of picks, but when he does, it's been a lot of cover 3 and some cover 2 and cover 4 in there. Especially when you look at when teams have run 2 deep safeties, cover 2 against the Rams, he really does just throw it short. It's the deep attempts are way down against cover 2. It's what it's designed to do, but the point being is that it functions correctly against the Rams offense. Whereas like cover 4, he's still taking deep shots. Cover 6, he's still taking deep shots. Cover 3, he's still taking deep shots. And of course, man coverage, he's taking deep shots too. Cover 2, we've seen a lot less deep shots from Stafford and a lot more checkdowns and throws behind the line of scrimmage. So and zone coverage is where he's thrown more of his interceptions. So it makes a lot of sense to say, hey, maybe do a little bit more of that and from the get-go rather than adjusting to it at halftime. Vice versa, the majority of Matthew Stafford's touchdowns this season have come against man coverage. I was running the numbers. I think 17 touchdowns he's thrown against cover 0 blitzes this season. Man coverage, all-out blitzes. He's not just beating the blitz for a nice play. He's beating the blitz for touchdowns, specifically those cover 0 blitz where it's man coverage and there's no safety help behind it. I think there's still value to blitzing Matthew Stafford at times, although he's still very good against the blitz. But you can't just hope that your pass rushers are going to get to him before Puka Nacua and Devonta Adams get free against man coverage behind it. Like it's just not going to work consistently. You have to bait him into making mistakes. Not bait him as in fool him, but just like play enough zone coverage where he might make mistakes because he makes a lot more there than he does against man-to-man. I think he's had some good luck when it comes to turnovers, but he's thrown in the last 5 games in a row. He's had at least one turnover-worthy throw from PFF, a play that could be a turnover, but not always is a turnover. Depends on if the player catches it or not, that kind of thing. And 4 of those 5 games have had multiple turnover-worthy plays. So if the last month is any indication, Bears defensive backs should be able to get their hands on at least one Matthew Stafford pass in this game, maybe 2 or 3. You got to catch him. The margin of error is going to be so small against the number 1 offense that you can't afford to drop interceptions or have penalties negate interceptions like we've seen the Bears affected by a couple times in recent weeks. There's just no room for error. There's no room for coming out with the same old man coverage game plan and then changing it at halftime when you're down 3 scores. That's what I need to see from this Bears offense. Maybe they'll benefit as well from the Rams having a lot of outside noise and a lot of distractions outside of their organizations, pulling their coaching staff in multiple directions. As they're a popular team to raid for coaching candidates, we'll take a look at where they might be, have a lot on their plate, and also a Bears coaching staff name that hasn't been a formal interview or anything yet, but I think there's a little bit of smoke coming around one potential idea, including a trade of a Bears coach. Crazier things have happened. We'll talk about it next on Locked On Bears. This episode of Locked On Bears is brought to you by Ultimate QB Football Legend. Have you ever wished to be a pro quarterback and get drafted first overall by, say, the Bears, like Caleb Williams, for example? Well, now you can. There's a mobile game just for you called Ultimate QB Football Legend. In this game, you step into the cleats of a number 1 draft pick quarterback, and it's your job to lead your team to greatness and help turn a failing franchise into a dynasty. It's the number 1 QB career mode game on the mobile app stores, and it introduces the most realistic environment with full career control. All of the ups and downs, rookie nerves, playoff drama, and every choice shapes your journey. Ultimate QB is totally free to play, has no ads, and works 100% offline. It's perfect for when you just want to sneak in a quick game or two on the go. Just head over to ultimate-qb.com. That's ultimate-qb.com, or search for Ultimate QB in your app store. And we've got something special just for you guys. If you use our promo code LOCKEDON, all caps, in the game's store, you'll get a free boost at the start of your career. Ultimate QB Football Legend. QB1, it's your legacy. The Locked On Bears podcast is also brought to you by Home Chef. As the new year gets going, a lot of people are trying to simplify their routines, and dinner is a big one. Between busy work days, cold winter nights, and packed schedules, having an easy, reliable dinner plan makes a huge difference, and that's where Home Chef comes in. Home Chef takes the stress out of cooking by delivering fresh, pre-portioned ingredients right to your door with easy-to-follow recipes that actually taste great. They're rated number 1 by users of other meal kits for quality, convenience, value, taste, and recipe ease. And it's easy to see why. Recipes feel elevated with even restaurant quality dishes co-created by chefs like Gordon Ramsay. Everything comes pre-portioned, so less prep, less mess, and no wasted food. For a limited time, Home Chef is offering our listeners 50% off your first box, free shipping, and free dessert for life. Just go to homechef.com/lockedon. That's homechef.com/lockedon for half off your first box plus free shipping and free dessert for life. But you got to be an active subscriber to keep receiving the free dessert. I try not to read too much into the idea of like, oh, coaching interviews are going to distract the team and pull them away because, these are all professionals who know how to do their job and then do other stuff on the side. But with the Los Angeles Rams, it's a little bit of another step up, like another level of, wow, they got a lot going on for that coaching staff. Like, it's one thing if it's like one guy here there that's got an interview or whatever that he might not be 100% in it, but the Rams are really in it. And that's something that I'm curious to see if it ends up looking or feeling at all like a factor. Because if we try and be as realistic as possible here, like we know NFL coaches or whatever work super long hours, right? But it's not 24 hours a day, right? They spend, I'm sure, especially in the playoffs, 12 to 16 hours a day trying to prepare for these playoff games. But you still have then 12 to 8 hours of going home, sleeping, being with your family, other time that they can then sacrifice some of that other time to work on interviews and stuff like that. Like you could have a reasonable explanation for a coach being able to do all of his normal game week, game prep, practice meetings, game planning, scheming, etc., and then also squeeze out extra time for interviews with other teams and such. But they have to sacrifice somewhere. And almost no matter where they sacrifice, it is going to affect them in some way, shape, or form, right? Like, certainly if they're sacrificing from their time with the Rams, then that's sacrificing for game day. If they're sacrificing sleep, then they're not going to be quite as mentally sharp for game day as they would be if they're sacrificing family time, right? They're not going to they're going to be off balance, right? They're going to be feeling that within themselves of like, not getting to spend as much time with their wives and kids, for example, or feeling like they're, neglecting those duties or whatever it might be, right? Like the time's got to come from somewhere. And so there's got to be some kind of loss, whether that sacrifice actually has an effect on the product we see on the field on Sunday. It's impossible to measure, but it's hard not to look into it when the Rams are getting a lot of interest there because it's three different guys on their staff. Offensive coordinator Mike LaFleur has interviews with the Las Vegas Raiders and the Arizona Cardinals. Those are the two that I've seen publicly reported. And then even their offensive passing game coordinator, Nathan Scheelhaas, I don't think that's how you pronounce it. He has 4 head coaching interviews with the Raiders, the Steelers, the Ravens, and the Browns. And then their defensive coordinator, Chris Shula, had an interview with the Giants. They hired John Harbaugh, so he's off the board. But then also the Dolphins, Steelers, and Browns. So my quick math says that's 10 different coaching interviews across the 3 guys. And those are just the ones that have been, fully publicly reported at this point. I suppose there could be more even on top of that. And each one of those is however many hour, or maybe it's an hour, or maybe it's hours for preparing for the interview and then doing the interview, even if it's virtual over Zoom. Like it's still time that they don't have, that the Bears coaching staff does have here. And I think it's also worth sort of noting, even though it's kind of the obvious thing saying out loud, like there has not been a single Bears coach publicly reported as interviewing for any other job with any other team, right? Teams are putting out these lists of like, here's our head coach interviews. Dennis Allen has had none of those. Offensive coordinator Declan Doyle has had none of those. Like, I don't know that any other assistant on the Bears staff would jump straight to head coach interviews, but none of them have been on those lists. And we haven't seen any reporting up to this point, at least, of any of the Bears assistants being interviewed for, say, offensive or defensive coordinator jobs at this point. That doesn't mean there haven't been perhaps back channel communications of like certain coaching candidates reaching out and saying, hey, if I get a job, I want to bring you with me or whatever. But like, that's a little bit different than preparing for an interview, preparing materials, conducting the interview, thinking about the interview all week, doing the interview, and then thinking about the interview after you're done with the interview. Did I do a good job? Like all the different ways that can be a slight distraction. The Bears haven't had any of that. I've seen some speculation that because with the Kansas City Chiefs and Matt Nagy potentially leaving for a job, I believe I saw that like Matt Nagy's contract was going to expire anyway, so they kind of have a vacancy on like that he's going to get a gig anyway, but also they're kind of just, they've been preparing regardless that, hey, this was going to be kind of the time to move on. The Chiefs have not really made any announcements as far as interviewing offensive coordinator candidates, and there's been some speculation that Eric Bieniemy might just be kind of their person they want, and they're just waiting for Eric Bieniemy to be eliminated, and then kind of a back channel handshake kind of deal of like, hey, when you're ready, we'll take you back kind of thing. So that's one thing to keep on the back of our minds. The other idea I've seen thrown out there that may have some legs to it is the Denver Broncos and their defensive coordinator, Vance Joseph. That if Vance Joseph gets a job elsewhere as a head coach, because there's 7 or 8 head coach openings, no guarantee that Vance Joseph does, but he's expected to be a fairly liked candidate here, that the Denver Broncos might be interested in Dennis Allen as their defensive coordinator. And you say, well, wait a minute, he's already the Bears defensive coordinator. They can't just hire him away. That's true. But they could trade for him. And I don't know that we've seen a coordinator trade in the NFL. But the idea would be that, of course, Sean Payton, head coach of the Broncos, worked with Dennis Allen for, more than a decade, I believe, with the New Orleans Saints. And that maybe Dennis Allen might want that too. And that he might go to Ben Johnson and say, listen, like, I love you, but I love Sean Payton more. Like he's my guy. So, can we work something out where Dennis Allen goes to the Broncos for a very late round draft pick? I mean, Bruce Arians was traded for a 6th round pick. Herm Edwards was traded for a 4th round pick. Like day 3 draft pick at best you're getting for Dennis Allen. And the idea, the way you sell this to Ben Johnson and the Bears is like, listen, you're going to get a draft pick, and then you can promote Al Harris to defensive coordinator and not lose him, right? It's sort of the idea would be like a win-win, right? Rather than have Al Harris leave and go become the Dallas Cowboys defensive coordinator, or heaven forbid, the Green Bay Packers defensive coordinator, rather than lose your rising star assistant coach to some other team, you could get a draft pick for Dennis Allen, who, by the way, this Bears defense has had some flaws this season. Not his fault, but still, it's not like you're losing a top 5 defensive coordinator right now, per se. So you get to keep Al Harris. Dennis Allen gets to go where he wants to go, and you get a late round draft pick. Like, the draft pick is kind of, a throw-in at that point. But I just think it's an interesting scenario to ponder, and something that only makes, like, I only give it air. Like, I only lend it credence because it's Sean Payton and Dennis Allen specifically. It's not just like, Bears have a good coach, so of course other teams want to trade for him. And the Bears wouldn't trade away a coach just to some other team because they wanted him, because they thought it'd be an upgrade for him. Like, they would keep him, but like specifically because you could see Dennis Allen also wanting it, and it sort of being like Ben Johnson doing Dennis Allen a favor and getting to keep Al Harris along the way. Like, I don't think it's actually going to happen, but it's the most realistic coordinator trade idea I think I've ever heard. So just something to kind of keep in the back of your mind. Him and Bieniemy, of like guys who could kind of quietly sneak away. And then Al Harris is certainly going to be a candidate for a bunch of teams' coordinators, but those kind of assistance moves will happen as head coaches get hired. So we still have time before that might be a distraction for the Bears. This week, whole Bears staff is 100% locked in on the Rams, and I'm not sure you can say that about the Rams staff being locked in on the Bears. So that could be a slight advantage this week. I'm not sure there's going to be an advantage in terms of like health and injuries, because both of these teams have as clean of an injury report as you could hope for the divisional round of the playoffs this week. So we'll talk about who the Bears and the Rams are getting back heading into this matchup next on Locked On Bears. This episode of Locked On Bears is brought to you by Gametime. The NFL playoffs are in full swing, and there's nothing like being at the game. The crowd noise, the energy, the cheering alongside other fans. Watching at home is great, but being in the stadium just hits different. But we all know the frustrating part is actually getting tickets, waiting in queues, dealing with logins, and watching prices change right when you get to checkout. But that's why the Gametime app gives the advantage back to the fans. It's the hack for unlocking amazing NFL tickets and experiences in just a few taps. I've used the Gametime app to get tickets to Bears games. It's a super easy experience. I'll tell you right now, they're not cheap for Bears Rams, but you can absolutely get tickets to Bears Rams. The cheapest one I'm seeing on my Gametime app right now looks to be $394 in the door, but I've seen prices that have commas in them elsewhere. But Gametime's always going to find you the best deal with the Gametime guarantee, and the price you see is the price you pay. No added fees at the checkout process that make the tickets cost way more than you thought they would. So take the guesswork out of buying NFL tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use our promo code LOCKEDONNFL. That's LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem that code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today and get back to being there live. The Locked On Bears podcast is also brought to you by FanDuel. The playoffs are here, and FanDuel is officially in playoff mode. Every game day during the NFL playoffs, FanDuel is giving customers even more ways to get in on the action, because right now, FanDuel is giving users a profit boost pack waiting for them in the app every playoff game day. Saturday and Sunday, you'll see a pack loaded with multiple profit boosts that you can apply to the bets you like most. So right now, the Bears are 3.5-point home underdogs to the Rams. The money line is Bears plus 166, over under set at 48.5 points. If you log into the FanDuel app on game day, you're going to find profit boosts to go after even bigger payouts while the playoffs get rolling. The boosts give you even more juice on the bets you already like, instead of forcing you to bet something new. So visit FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL, and grab your profit boost pack every NFL playoff game day. The Bears have seen better news on the injury report the last couple of weeks, albeit not including TJ Edwards going to injured reserve, Ozzie Trapillo going to injured reserve. But the players who are not on injured reserve and are attending practice have generally been trending healthier the past few weeks. Of course, against the Packers, the Bears got Kyler Gordon and Rome Odunze back. That was a huge boost. Both of them continue to be healthy enough on the Bears injury report. Rome Odunze limited at practice, but we kind of know with the stress fracture he's dealing with, it's not just going to go away. He's going to be limited the whole time, but still practicing enough and healthy enough to play and contribute on Sunday. Kyler Gordon, same kind of thing, like soft tissue injuries all season. He's not 100%, but he's good enough to go in a playoff game. But a couple other names coming back off of injury this week that aren't as big of a name as Odunze and Kyler Gordon, but give you some much needed depth to feel a little bit better about some of your rotations. Two guys who missed last week that are full speed ahead this week. Nickel cornerback CJ Gardner-Johnson and defensive end Joe Tryon-Shoyinka. We saw last week when they didn't start Kyler Gordon to begin the game, it was Nick McLeod in the slot, and he promptly got beat for a touchdown, an easy touchdown to Christian Watson. And before you knew it, Nick McLeod was out of the game, and Kyler Gordon was in. And I still have yet to see any explanation. I don't know if anybody's asked about it or what, but like why Kyler Gordon wasn't on the field for the first couple of drives, but then all of a sudden by the second or third drive or whatever, he was good to go and play the rest of the game. Like if he was healthy enough to play the rest of the game, then why wasn't he healthy enough to be out there on the first drive? Like, did he need an extra 10 minutes before he took the field to warm up more? Or like, I have no idea what the decision making there was, but like CJ Gardner-Johnson gives me a lot more peace of mind. We've certainly seen him be vulnerable at times too, but he is a much better player than Nick McLeod, who is not an NFL caliber nickelback or cornerback as far as I'm concerned at this point. So if Kyler Gordon, again, can't go for the first couple drives for some reason, I feel a lot better about CJ Gardner-Johnson being out there. He's better in the running game. He's a better blitzer and also better in coverage than Nick McLeod for sure. And if, heaven forbid, Kyler Gordon re-aggravates something or tweaks something we saw earlier in the season, right? He was supposed to play a game, tweak something in pregame warm-ups, and then we didn't see him for a month, right? Heaven forbid that kind of thing happens. Thank goodness CJ Gardner-Johnson is back to fill that role if you absolutely need to. But even beyond that, CJ Gardner-Johnson is a versatile player who has played slot cornerback, has played safety, has played some hybrid linebacker before, and he gives Dennis Allen a weapon to play with on the back end. I think is also an upgrade in that regard because Dennis Allen likes to go to his dime personnel package with 6 defensive backs on the field just to throw some different looks at opposing quarterbacks, especially in third and passing situations, third downs. He puts them all up in the line of scrimmage, and he'll have what he'll do is he'll bring in a third safety and then have, still 3 safeties, 3 cornerbacks, and then, a combination of linebackers and defensive linemen to kind of fill in the rest, usually like 3 and 2. And when he has done that, last week against the Packers, it was 5 snaps by Elijah Hicks. And I believe in week 18 against the Lions, we saw a little bit of Jonathan Owens and a little bit of Elijah Hicks in this game. CJ Gardner-Johnson in that role is a significant upgrade over Elijah Hicks and Jonathan Owens. He's a better blitzer if they want to blitz him. He's a better run defender if teams happen to run against that package. Usually it's clearly passing situations. I also think he's a better underneath coverage defender than either of those safeties trying to fill that role. So I like the idea of Dennis Allen getting to be more creative with CJ Gardner-Johnson as that chess piece as opposed to it being Hicks or Jonathan Owens there. Even if Kyler Gordon is fully healthy and plays 100% of the snaps, CJ Gardner-Johnson can have a role in this defense. I mentioned Joe Tryon-Shoyinka only because the Bears have been thin at defensive end the last few weeks, and it's meant that guys like Montez Sweat and Austin Booker have to play a bunch of snaps. And just having somebody like Joe Tryon-Shoyinka back in there helps those guys just stay a little bit fresher. I don't think Joe Tryon's that good of a player, but he is a body that can give your other guys a breather. Austin Booker was on the field for all but 2 snaps against the Packers. He is not as effective 60 plays into the game as he was 10 plays into the game. So if Joe Tryon-Shoyinka could come in and play 15 or 20 snaps, we saw Montez Sweat played almost 60 snaps in that game. If you could just give those guys an extra breather here or there, so when you get to that critical third down late in the game, when you need the pass rush to step up, those guys aren't totally and completely winded because Tryon-Shoyinka and Dominique Robinson on their side can at worst give them a breather and hold their own, even if they're not going to step out and be major playmakers there. So those are good returns for the Bears. The Rams may be getting even better injury news, though, briefly. Their right guard, Kevin Dotson, had missed the last few weeks of the regular season and their first playoff game. He has been fully healthy on their injury report and expected to play, as well as their number 3 wide receiver, Jordan Whittington, who had also missed at least the last game. I think he's missed multiple games here. And certainly he doesn't scare you the way that Puka Nacua and Devonta Adams do, but anytime the number one offense in football adds more weapons to their arsenal, it's not a good thing. I mean, he's a young guy. They got other guys they like. You're not gonna get beaten in this game by Jordan Whittington. Like, he's not gonna be the difference in the game, but he's yet another body that Sean McVay can work with, and so that's never a good thing for the opponent that he's facing. The better news, though, is that, hey, the Bears aren't dealing with any surprise injuries or anything new that won't be expected for Sunday. It's going to be full go. See if you can get your best. I think the Bears' best can beat the Rams. We haven't really seen the Bears' best in a while, and that's where I'm not overly confident, but there's something to be said about the Bears have nothing to lose here, right? They're playing with house money. They're going to be fast and loose. The Rams have this pressure of Super Bowl window is shrinking. Matthew Stafford's getting older. Sean McVay has talked about stepping away. Their coaching staff is going to get pulled apart by head coaching hires. Like, they've got pressure to win now. They've got expectations to win now. They're the favorite. They're the team that should be in the NFC Conference Championship game. They're the team that's maybe the Super Bowl favorite in the NFC, right? They've got all the pressure and all the expectations. The Bears are playing for fun out there. So go do it. Go be loose. Go be fun. And maybe, just maybe, that can be an advantage for you too in this matchup. But let's try and have fun with it on Sunday. Win, lose, or draw. We're going to break it all down for you right afterwards on the Bears Squad Show, live in the Locked On Bears YouTube channel. And then we'll have a podcast out on Monday breaking everything down for you as well in your regular Locked On Bears feeds and on YouTube. So make sure you hit the subscribe button wherever you listen to the podcast, because that's going to be the best way to keep up with all of our daily, in-depth Chicago Bears news and analysis. Thanks for making Locked On Bears your first listen today. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. If you haven't already, be sure to check out the Locked On Everydayers Club, where if you're an everyday listener to this podcast, first of all, thank you so much. We really do appreciate your loyalty. But if you want to get an ad-free audio feed of Locked On Bears with no ads, compatible with Apple Podcasts and Spotify and all the other major podcasting apps, you can join the Locked On Bears Everydayers Club for that ad-free audio experience, plus an invite to the members-only Locked On Everydayer Club Discord server, which includes a Locked On Bears group chat just for listeners of this show. If you want to check it out, go to lockedonbears.supercast.com to find out more, or just keep listening the same way you always have. We're free, available on all the platforms, not going behind a paywall or anything like this. That's just a upgraded listening experience if you'd like to check it out. But in the meantime, make sure you keep listening to Locked On Bears for your next opportunity to bear down.